guys, Leah and Bear here from GSD Bear. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be talking about pet insurance. For those of you who have followed Bear on Instagram since he was a puppy, you'll remember that getting Bear the surgery he needed was not an easy thing for us to do, and that was largely because the insurance we had for him just didn't fully cover him. And as you know, insurance is a really massive factor in making certain treatments become available. So, do I recommend taking out pet insurance for your dog? That's something I get asked about quite often. I was actually going to include it in last week's frequently asked questions video, but I thought it could really do with a video to itself. So hopefully this will help you decide if it's for you, and maybe I can help prevent you from making the same mistakes I made. Okay, but before I get into it, let me just say these are just my personal opinions on insurance based off my own experience with it. Obviously everybody's going to have different experiences. It really depends on the company that you sign up with and, well, luck really, in terms of whether or not your dog actually needs it. Hopefully you'll never have to use it, and if you do, hopefully not too often, but if something does go wrong and you have it there, it can be a lifesaver, literally. So how does it work? There are loads of companies out there that will offer insurance. You can find them really easily online. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, babe, no. Oh my god, what are you doing? There are loads of companies out there that will offer insurance. You can find them really easily online, especially on comparison websites. So once you've scrolled through those and you've picked out one that will suit you best, you put all your details in about yourself and your dog, and they'll give you the option of either paying up front for the year or in monthly instalments. Usually it works out a little bit cheaper if you pay it all in one go for the year, but it's not drastically cheaper in most cases, so I've always paid monthly. You usually get the choice of a couple of different types of cover from the same insurer, like a bronze, silver, gold, platinum sort of thing. The higher you go, the more that you'll have to pay, but the more that they'll cover you for. So for example, some will just cover you for a small amount of money for accidents and minor treatment, whereas a really top one would cover you for everything, plus things like complementary treatment, behavioural problems, farewell cover, stuff like that. It's important to note that even if you take out insurance on a Monday, you're probably not going to be covered for Tuesday, and you'll usually find that with a lot of insurers. You can't make a claim within at least the first 14 days or so. That's really just there to stop people from setting up a cover because they've just found out their dog has got a problem and they want to be able to make a claim straight away. You can't do that. They will check with your vet if they've got any conditions already noted down on their record, and if they find it, they will not cover you. They will not pay out. So if you find out your dog has got a pre-existing condition and then you try and get insurance afterwards, hoping that they'll pay for your treatment, you won't be able to. That's why it's really important that if you are going to take out an insurance, you ideally need to get it as soon as possible in your dog's life, preferably as a puppy. Not only is that going to make it a lot more affordable for you, but it'll mean that as long as you pick out a really good policy, they'll cover you for whatever condition they may get in the future. So how much does it cost? This is going to depend on a couple of things. A big factor is the age of your dog when you take out the policy. As I mentioned, puppies are a lot cheaper to cover because they're considered to have less health problems. If you're insuring a rescue dog or an older dog, they're going to ask you if they've got any pre-existing conditions, and if they do, it's going to cost a lot more to insure them, and that's if they do cover them at all. It can also depend on the breed of dog because certain breeds are more prone to having health issues than others, so generally large breeds are more expensive to cover than smaller breeds. So to give you an example, when I first signed up for Bear's insurance, he was 3 months old, and I think it cost me something like £20 a month, which in hindsight wasn't a lot. If I was to insure him now, I'd have to tell them that he was previously diagnosed with hip dysplasia, and even though he had surgery to fix that, it's still classed as a pre-existing condition, so now it would cost me a lot more. He's also 2 years older now, so from their point of view, that makes him a lot more likely to develop age-related issues than he was when he was a puppy. Another thing to consider is that if you do make a claim, it's going to bump it up in price the next year. So for that reason, sometimes minor treatments like antibiotics for an ear infection, it's not worth going through the insurance for, but you've sort of got to just weigh that up for yourself. So that's what you should do to get the best out of your insurance. This is what I did. I took out insurance for Bear immediately after we got him. I've got 3 dogs at home, but he's actually the first one that I've had insurance for. For our other 2 dogs, we've always just sort of put a bit of money aside for them in case it was needed. But for Bear, with him being a large breed that's prone to quite a few conditions, particularly when they get older, I thought it'd be better to be safe than sorry. When I set up his insurance, I took out what I thought was a great cover. It was Morvan's premium option, and it covered him for all sorts. I actually have a list of those here. Okay, so this is Bear's medical folder. Got his own file. Vet fees covered up to £4,000 in total, with a maximum of £1,000 per condition. We'll get back to that later. Complementary treatment up to £1,500, behavioural problems, dental care, treatment food, third-party liability up to £3 million, accidental damage, death from accident, death from illness, emergency pet boarding, pet cover abroad, farewell cover, you know, all sorts. So as someone who had never taken out pet insurance before, when I saw what that policy offered, I thought it was amazing. At the time, obviously I was hoping I'd never really need to use any of those things, but I thought, you know, wow, that's going to cover me for literally everything. I can't see myself going over that. Am I going to need to spend more than £4,000 a year? Probably not. I was wrong. As you probably know, Bear was diagnosed with hip dysplasia at 6 months old, and that was well into his insurance policy. So at the time I was relieved to know that he was at least covered by some sort of insurance, but then when we were discussing treatment with the vet, and they told us how expensive total hip replacements were, I realised that the insurance wasn't going to cover him for anywhere near enough. So although it was £4,000 worth of cover for the year, it was actually broken down into £1,000 per condition, one condition meaning his hips. So a claim for his hip dysplasia was only ever going to cover him for a maximum of £1,000 out of the £4,000 I originally thought I had. And I mean, that's not the insurance fault, that's my own fault for naively thinking that £4,000 a year would be enough, and for not bearing in mind that if it was broken down into separate issues, he would only have £1,000 towards it. How much did Bear's surgeries cost? I'm always more than happy to answer your questions about hip dysplasia, if I can. The cost question is always one that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable to talk about, so I tend to avoid it where I can, because honestly I just don't like thinking about it. But for this video I'm going to break it down for you so you can see the flip side of not having insurance, or just not having enough insurance, as was our case. So, deep breath. Bear's surgeries racked up a bill of around £21,000. It should have been more like £15,000 for the 2 hip replacements, but we had the unexpected cost of a 3rd replacement because he dislocated his 2nd, and that had to be corrected. Even the medication, you wouldn't believe how expensive they were. Everything adds up so quickly. So here's a couple of examples of the medication costs. Gabapentin, £75, Onsior, £76, Therio, £60, ACP tablets, £50, sedation, £105, hospitalisation for the day, £95, more sedatives, £112. It just all adds up very quickly. And obviously that's a huge amount of money for anybody, it certainly was for us. But what makes it worse is knowing that if I had taken out a better insurance, it would have covered probably most of that. But still, it's done now, he's out of pain and he will live a long and healthy life, and that is all that matters. So in the UK, hip replacements usually range in price between about £5,000 and £8,000 per hip, depending on where you go. So we worked out if we timed it right, we could schedule his first operation towards the end of his policy year, so we could claim £1,000 towards that, and then get his 2nd operation done towards the beginning of his next policy year, so we could claim another £1,000. But even then, that was only £2,000 towards what was estimated to be about £15,000, which obviously was nowhere near enough to cover it, but it was definitely better than nothing. We couldn't get any help from the insurance on the 3rd operation because we'd already claimed the max of £1,000 towards the 2nd hip replacement, so that was a nightmare. Honestly, at that point I thought there was no way that we were ever going to be able to afford it. Up till that point, obviously, we had used up all of our savings and we'd managed to raise the rest of the money with the help of amazing family and friends, but to cover the most part of it I had to take out a loan, and I'm still paying for that now. So is insurance worth getting? Yes, 100% it is worth getting. My only problem with ours was that I just didn't take out enough, and that was my own fault for not picking out a high enough cover. I just did not think at the time when I took it out that I'd ever be facing those kind of vet bills. But our insurance really did help with the hydrotherapy as a complimentary cover, and that made a big difference. The amount it did pay out obviously was better than nothing. And to be fair, they were really helpful. I never had any issues with them paying out, they were always pretty prompt. What I'm trying to say is, if you have a really good cover, you can avoid all of the stress and heartache and panicking that we went through when we thought we almost couldn't afford to get him his treatment. You really do have to do your homework thoroughly and look into the policies for exactly what it's going to cover, because if you're buying a breed that you know is prone to having problems at some point, please do not make the mistake that I did. Take out the best cover that you can afford, make sure it covers common problems like hip dysplasia and joint issues. Because honestly, if you find something like that down the line and you're covered, it's going to be a real game changer for you. I'm so angry with myself for not taking out a higher paying insurance for Bear at the beginning. It would have saved me so much stress, and it would have meant that he'd have gotten his surgeries done a lot quicker than he did. Some people might be reluctant to pay out for a monthly insurance cover that they might not ever use, and that's totally understandable. It does add up to quite a lot over the years, so an alternative to that might be to put money into a separate savings account so you've got that to fall back on in emergency situations. But personally, I think that if you can afford to pay monthly for insurance, it really is worth doing, if only for peace of mind. If you pick a really good insurance for your dog, you can rest easy knowing that if the worst happens, you're covered and you're going to be able to get the very best treatment for your best friend. There's nothing worse than being presented with a massive bill for treatment and panicking about how you're going to be able to find the money for it, trust me. So that's it for today's video. Let us know in the comments what your experience has been with pet insurance or without it. I think that would be really helpful for anybody reading through those in the comments who are looking for a second or third opinion. If you like this video and you found it helpful, please like, comment and subscribe. We put out new videos every Monday, and if there's anything specific you want to see, let us know and we'll try and add that in. See you next time.